Good afternoon, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. So I've been reading a lot about student loans lately because one of the arguments I've been hearing is that the government or the president can just simply write the student loans off as if they never existed and everybody can just be free and clear on their loans. Now, I have a hard time trying to comprehend this because I know where the student loans came from, right? Now, back in about 2006, there was a big push for student loans. Now, prior to that, it was about 93 is when government started getting into, it was like they just started getting into student loan purchases, right? And what they would do is they buy student loan asset-backed securities. So a bunch of student loans get jumbled into a security and the government buys that and puts it on their asset sheet. Now in 93, it was a very small amount. It was just a few $100 million that they had done. But in 2006, they really started pushing these things, right? Go back to school. Everybody go to school, get a student loan. And the government started buying these student loan asset-backed securities like crazy, to the tune of like 90% of them that are out there. So now these student loan asset-backed securities, they sit on the United States government's asset sheets, okay, to the tune of $1.5 trillion worth. Now, if you write that loan, write that asset off as if it never existed, the credibility of the United States goes down, right? Because you have assets and liabilities, and if a credit agency looks at it and says your assets just went in the toilet, you don't have any assets, you just lost $1.5 trillion worth of them, right? The credibility of our credit rating just goes totally in the toilet, okay? And what ends up happening from that is that our bonds become they get downgraded in their ratings, okay? So if these bonds get downgraded in their grading, then guess what? People like retirement pension funds and stuff like that, they can't own a particular rating, under a particular rating. They have to own at least a particular rating or higher. And if those bonds go under that rating, they have to get rid of them, which is going to expedite the problem, okay? So you can't just simply write them off. All right. Now, what you can do is try and sell them. All right. You can sell them off and try and get the money back and offset the liabilities that you have out there. Right. Which is the United States Treasuries. So if you take your assets and you just disappear them, your liability for what you got those assets for, so they took out U.S. Treasuries, sold them to the Federal Reserve, got some dollars, lent them out essentially to the students, right? Got those assets that says, hey, the students are going to pay this back plus an interest, and we're going to be able to pay these treasuries back with them, but we're going to write those off and just make them disappear. Well, you still owe, right? You still owe the treasuries. So how do you do that? Well, you need to cut government. That doesn't work out very well. You can tax the citizens. That doesn't work out very well. Or you can issue more treasuries, go deeper into debt. Now, that is the most favorable one because nobody seems to care. Deficits don't matter, right? So that's the problem with just simply writing them off. You can't do that. And now here's another problem, okay? Because you can't just simply turn off the faucet either. All these schools have become addicted to government money. If the government there was a push, okay? There was a push back, I remember like when I graduated high school in 95, and I remember they were just really starting to say, hey, you should go to school. Everybody should go to college. If you want to go to college education, here's how you get student loans. I remember like the kids around me trying to get for grants. I remember them trying to find ways to get college money that wasn't through a student loan itself, but they were really starting to push the student loans right then. Now, these schools started getting an influx of students with money that they didn't earn or have or were paying for. They got a loan for it, okay? And once you fill the seats of the school starts raising their prices until essentially they don't have an empty seat. And then once people are like, hey man, it's just too expensive to go to your school, right? That's where it peaks out at. But as long as you're getting a loan for it, the prices are going to keep going up. Same thing with houses, same thing with cars, same thing with anything. Anything you loan money to is going to have a price going up to it because people don't think about how much it costs them in an hourly wage to try and buy that particular item, right? Especially when it comes to like houses and cars, or student loans. So if you have these schools that are all addicted to these student loans, what happens when you turn them off? Well, go take ITT, for example, right? They said no more, these student loans shouldn't be going to ITT Tech anymore, right? And then ITT Tech fails because they don't have these student loans coming in there from the government. And I bet you pretty much any school would be like that, considering that most people have to take out a loan to go to school. 90% of them are getting it from the government, and the government's going to dictate what schools are going to get the loans, or get the students anyway from their loans. There's no fixing that problem. There's no fixing it. And the only way to fix it is for the government to stop buying student loan asset-backed securities immediately. If they were to stop doing that immediately, then you would have a situation in which those student loans would not be getting taken out because the interest rates on them would go sky high. Because pretty much what you are going to get is you are going to have to go to a private lender and attempt to get that student loan. Yeah. And then, of course, considering that nobody pays back their student loan right now, the possibilities of you getting a student loan from a private lender, you're going to have to be pretty credible. There's a lot of ways that we could work a way around it, but you can't just simply write them off. That's not going to be possible. I wonder, was anything else I wanted to add to that? Uneducated Economist, you guys let me know.